始めろ。生きておったのか。
So, Kazuya is back. 22 years in a test tube will do that for you, I guess. That's 20 years after Heihachi threw his son into a volcano, and 2 years after the last tournament. Coincidentally, Tekken 4 took 2 years to develop, so maybe the dates are intentional? Anyway, Tekken 4 and his reputation in the series is not unlike Zelda 2. It's the weird one. It does things differently than any game before it and any game since. An idea or two may come back later, but mostly it's an anomaly in an otherwise consistent series. Tekken 4 introduces a slew of changes to the formula. Aesthetically, it's the nicest looking Tekken for the time. Character models are more detailed than ever, and the infinite floor stages have been replaced by actual boundaries. More on that in a bit. Everyone is fighting in street clothes, with very few examples of the fighter's signature looks on display. Overall, it gives the game a gritty, grunge-like look to everything. But that's how it looks, but how does it play? I'll be honest here. Before this video, I only ever played Tekken 4 once at a bowling alley. It seemed fine, and it was fine whenever I popped into my PS2 to get some footage. If you look at a match of gameplay, it looks like Tekken, but there are a handful of small and subtle changes that add up to make the gameplay feel off. Up until now, the main complaint I've heard about Tekken 4 was the stages, which we'll get to in a bit. Though, there are other changes that I learned about that really put all this into perspective. These are the gameplay changes for Tekken 4. The sidestep is nerfed. It doesn't go as far as before. You can walk from the side, but that's about it. You can only jump forward, as back and neutral jumping has been removed. Backwards crouch walking is also gone. Quick jabs and punches are more useful than anything else in the game due to the engine change. An engine change that had to be made because of the funky ass arenas. Okay, so the time has come to talk about Tekken 4's infamous arena problem. Every Tekken up until now had stages with infinite scrolling floors. Now we have walls and pillars, and in some cases, ceilings to contend with. This allows you to juggle your opponents for extra damage. A wall bounce, if you will. So, to accommodate the new system, all the changes had to be put in to make it function on top of tweaking character combos way down. There is a new position change maneuver to get you out of a corner, but it's a similar command to doing a throw, and all the times I was going for a throw, I ended up doing this instead. Neat. Okay, so imagine doing all that with tweak controls, a gimped combat system, while dealing with walls, ceilings, and other shit. Now imagine doing all that on uneven terrain. Tekken 4's stages are a 60-40 split between flat stages and stages with dips, ramps, and hills. Hell, even some of the flat stages have some kind of height differences going on. Obviously, this means that certain attacks become useless or have crazy hitboxes depending on where you happen to fight at the time. And if Revenge of the Sith has taught us anything, it's that the high ground is a 10-0 matchup. So, where did this idea come from? While not a confirmation in the slightest, there was a precedent set here by none other than Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter 3 had been out a few years in arcades before finally getting a Dreamcast port in 1999. One of the biggest changes to the gameplay was the stages having different elevations across the bulk of them. This ended up being just as divisive of Tekken 4's new stages for a lot of the same reasons. They even had their own evasion mechanic that never returned to later installments. I'm not saying Namco copied Sega's homework, but they did arrive at the same conclusion. But hey, that's just a theory. A Tekken theory. I always wanted to do that.
Never mind that shit. Here comes
Kazuya.
Hey, Kazuya's back. Let's talk about that. It's been 2 years since Heihachi's plan to gain Ogre's powers for himself failed. He manages to get some of Ogre's remains, and through the experiments of his scientists, he learns that Ogre's DNA has links to the Devil Gene. While he's investigating all this, he learns that somebody has been fooling with Kazuya's remains and sends his Tekken Force to find them. When they end up at the lab owned by G Corporation, a cutting-edge biotech firm, where they find that Kazuya has been revived. Kazuya then proceeds to wipe the floor with the Tekken Force. Heihachi expects his son to come after him next, so Heihachi sets up another King of Iron Fist tournament to lure him out before Kazuya can get to him first. So we have another tournament on our hands, so who's competing this time?
Jin Kazuma.
Jin is pissed. After Heihachi betrayed him and his Devil Gene awakened, Jin hated everything about the Mishimas and spent the last 2 years unlearning Mishima style to learn traditional karate. He's entering the tournament to destroy the Mishima Empire.
Steve Fox.
A British boxer and the current middleweight champion of the world. He's on the run from the Mafia for not throwing a fight. He enters the tournament in hopes of learning who his biological parents are.
Christy Montiero.
The granddaughter of Eddie Gordo's master. Eddie has taught Christy the art of capoeira, but abruptly left during her training to find the ones responsible for his father's death. Christy enters the tournament as that's her only lead to finding out where Eddie is.
Craig Marduk.
A former professional fighter whose rage and bad decisions led him to killing a man in a bar fight in Arizona. He was going to serve 10 years until somebody paid off a bunch of people to get him released early to participate in the tournament for unknown reasons.
Paul Phoenix.
Paul defeated Ogre in the last tournament. Unfortunately, he didn't know about Ogre's second form, and he left the tournament without finishing the fight. Now down on his luck, Paul enters the tournament to rebuild his rep and prove to the world that he is the true champion.
Martial Law.
Law's successful restaurant business came to an end when he lost the franchise war against another restaurant chain and went into bankruptcy. While being a depressed drunk, Law learns that another tournament is underway. Law gets back in shape and competes to win the prize.
Hwarang.
Hwarang gets drafted into the Korean military and does quite well, except for his disregard for rules and orders. He longs for the days before the military when he got into street fights, hustled for money, and fought against Jin. When he hears about the tournament, Hwarang deserts and heads to the tournament.
Yoshimitsu.
The Manji party is falling on hard times. The lack of funds and manpower makes it hard to provide aid to those who need it most. When he learns about the tournament, Yoshimitsu enters to try to unify the Manji party and the Mishima Zaibatsu to guarantee all the funding he'll ever need. So this time our man Yoshi is dressed up like a beetle, but in his profile pic you can see his neck meat, meaning that he is still a human, folks.
Lin Xiaoyu.
Xiaoyu gets an email warning her about Heihachi. She feels that the message came from Jin, who has been missing since the last tournament. So, she begins to distrust Heihachi and the Zaibatsu. When she hears about the fourth tournament, she enters with the goal of finding Jin and uncovering the truth behind Heihachi and the Zaibatsu.
King.
Armor King was murdered, and the killer got sent to a prison in Arizona. King saves up some money he won from pro wrestling to get the prisoner released from jail, and sends him a plane ticket and a flyer for the fourth tournament. He plans to fight this man at the tournament and get his revenge.
Violet.
He's the CEO of a robotics company called Violet Systems, and a skilled martial artist in the past. He's gotten bored of his lavish lifestyle, so he enters the tournament not just for fun, but to test out his latest invention. Combot, a humanoid fighting robot that can mimic the styles of any fighter as data on. Violet hopes the tournament will show off the power of his company's latest invention.
Brian Fury.
Brian realizes that his body is breaking down and he will soon be dead. Again. Dr. Abel abandoned him whenever Heihachi bought him into the Zaibatsu, so Brian decides to enter the tournament and have Dr. Abel make him the strongest body ever made.
Julia-chan.
Julia was at college studying archaeology when she learned of the environmental issues plaguing her homeland and decided to research a way to save it. She joins a research group who's being mostly funded by G-Corp, and is where their research data is also being stored. One day, she learns that the project got put on hold because of the Mishima Zaibatsu's attack on G-Corporation's research lab that resulted in their data being stolen. She enters the tournament to take on the Mishima Zaibatsu and retrieve her data. Kuma went back to the wilderness to train after losing to Paul in the last tournament. As he was regaining his animal instincts, he learns about the new tournament and enters for a shot at Paul again, this time with some new moves of his own. Panda is still Xiao Yu's pet and bodyguard, so she enters the tournament alongside her.
Nina Williams.
She's still an assassin. One day, she gets a contract from a mafia organization to kill Steve Fox, a world boxing champion. So, she enters the tournament to do the hit.
Lei Wulong.
Lei's girlfriend dumped him for his friend, and he became depressed. Not long afterward, he botches an operation against a crime syndicate and costs the police force 2 years of undercover work. His co-workers/rivals betrayed him and told the higher-ups that his personal life affected his work, and they suspended him for a month. He later learns that the same syndicate has sent an assassin to kill a boxer in the upcoming tournament. So, he enters with the hopes of making up for his failure. Poor guy. And that's everybody except for Kazuya and Heihachi, who we covered in the prologue. But there are some palette swaps for Christy, Xiaoyu, and Violet. Xiaoyu gets her friend Miharu, Violet gets Lee, because they are the same damn person, and Christy gets Eddie. Tiger won't be back for quite some time. So now we have our roster. So, let's discuss the modes for Tekken 4. Every mode from Tekken 3 returns, except for Tekken Ball. And since we're not covering Tekken 8, this is the last time it's going to be mentioned in this series. Goodbye Tekken Ball, can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. There is this one new mode called Story Battle, which is the arcade mode with an intro and ending cutscene. Also, you can't change your character when you continue because you are playing the story of that character. And at the end, you'll usually fight Heihachi. That's right, Heihachi is the final boss for the first time since the first Tekken. And he's wearing a diaper. This game is fucking weird. Tekken Force Mode is different this time around. Tekken Force Mode is still a beat 'em up, but the camera angle is much lower and closer than before, meaning it's easier to get attacked off screen as enemies this time around have no issue gangbanging your ass. Yeah, you can switch targets, but that only helps you so much. Also, the slanted stages return as you fight up and down hills and slopes, just like the main game. It's not quite as fun to play as before. Look, it'd probably be better if they either had the camera farther away or just did away with the stage elevation. Plus, each level is much longer than it needs to be, making even the first area feel like a slog. Add all that stuff together and it makes this shit much harder than you would believe. The only thing that makes it bearable is the fact that you have infinite continues, something that the last one didn't have, as you only have one shot to beat all 4 stages. In this game, if you lose, you can restart at the beginning of the stage, which tells me that Namco knew this shit was way harder than before. Tekken 4's Tekken Force Mode isn't bad, it's just disappointing. Now we made it to the last part of the video. It is time to talk about what happened at the tournament. You know the deal, who fought who during this thing is a mystery, and that will be no different here. So, here's what we do know. Hwoarang gets arrested by the Korean military and never meets Jin. Brian gets help by Yoshimitsu and Dr. Boskanovich. Julia didn't win the tournament or get her data back. King defeats Marduk and sends him to the hospital. Kuma finally defeats Paul, achieving something his father couldn't. Law failed to win the tournament, or any prize money at all. Christy doesn't win the tournament but finds Eddie anyway.
Eddie!
Violet is Li Chaolon in disguise. At some point in the tournament, he is defeated by Kazuya. Combot failed to perform as needed due to his hasty and rushed development. Xiaoyu didn't win or see Jin, and Panda was just there. Yoshimitsu doesn't win, but the Manji party is still hanging in there. Now for the stuff that needs more explaining. Lei and Steve meet during the tournament. Lei helps Steve uncover his past, and they learn that Nina is his mother. After the tournament, Nina gets info explaining how she is Steve's biological mother through in vitro fertilization done on one of her eggs during her cryosleep. She tries to snipe Steve, but is stopped by Lei, and Nina flees. As Lei chases her, he gets stopped by Steve, giving Nina a head start.
Please!
This is good enough police work for Lei to get his rep back. And Jin was to face Kazuya in the semifinals, but was ambushed and captured by the Tekken Force. When Kazuya learns of this, he gets invited to Hanmaru Temple for the final match by Heihachi. Now, for the first time ever, 3 generations of Mishima men will cross paths.
20年前貴様に殺されかけた時に分離した我が半身をこやつから取り戻す今こそ我が復活の時おかげで手間一つ省けた褒美に我が力を味わわせてやろうどうした貴様らの科学で我を研究し尽くしたのではないのかなぜ変わらぬ風間とやらの力和也貴様なぜまさかなるほど力の統合にこんな手もあったとは貴様の出番もここまでだ俺の中で溶けてゆくがいいあとは貴様を殺せば全て俺のものだ目覚めろ風間陣いか憎め呪え憎め呪え憎め憎め呪え憎め目覚めろ風間陣お前さえいなければお前を倒して全てを終わらせる 様か。
Final round. Fight. KO. You win.
所詮この程度の男か。不甲斐ない。その力、わしが全てもらおう。お前はここで死ぬ。
Final round. Fight. KO. You win.
風間淳に感謝しろ。
And that was the 4th tournament. Heihachi technically won, but Kazuya also got full control of his Devil Gene now, so have fun with that. Going through this game extensively for the first time was interesting. While not the worst Tekken, I still think I would play Tag or 3 over this one, as the fighting in those games are closer to what I want in a Tekken. There are several things that Tekken 4 does well, and in some cases better than the other games. The aesthetic and the tone of this Tekken is way different from what came before and what would come later. The gritty and grounded feel of the setting is super interesting when paired with the overall energy of the cast, as everyone is either angry, depressed, or just trying to make sense of the uncertainties of their lives. It really makes you invested in these fighters in a way that later installments don't quite do. Tekken 4 is a vibe, from everything down to its funky ass soundtrack. It just hits different. If you've never played Tekken 4, that's fine. You don't have to go out of your way to play it if you don't want to. But if you happen to be in a game shop somewhere and you see it for around $12 or so, pick it up. You may find something you like in there. At the very least, it'll make you appreciate Tekken 5 much more. But if there ever was a contender for Tekken 3's crown, Tekken 5 just might be the one.